My name's Ethan, and I've been married to Claire for 8 years. We weren't perfect, but I always thought we were solid, stable, grounded, ordinary in the best way. You know, the kind of couple who argues about where to eat but always ends up holding hands on the drive home. At least, that's how I used to describe us when people asked. Somewhere along the line, something cracked. Quietly, invisibly. It started with small things. She stopped waiting up for me when I worked late. Her phone started living in her hand, and our laughter became scheduled. It wasn't a fight. It was a slow drift. And the scariest part was how normal it looked. One night, I got home from a long shift. She was curled up on the couch, scrolling, barely looking up. "Hey," I said, leaning down to kiss her forehead. She flinched just slightly. "Don't touch me," she said flatly. I froze, thinking she was joking. "What?" I said, "Don't touch me. That's not a request." I stood there, halfway between confusion and embarrassment. The woman I married, the one who used to fall asleep on my chest, now spoke to me like I was some stranger breaking a rule in her house. I didn't say anything. I just nodded and went upstairs. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering how we got here. I kept replaying every moment, every argument, every silence. Had I done something? Had I stopped trying? The truth hit me somewhere between midnight and dawn. I'd been the only one still trying. The next few weeks were like living with a roommate who resented my existence. She'd walk past me in silence, eat separately, sleep on the edge of the bed with her back turned. Physical affection became extinct. Emotional warmth followed right behind it. Every time I reached out, for a hug, for a talk, I was met with cold indifference. One morning, over coffee, I finally asked, "Claire, are you okay with this? With us?" She didn't look up. "I'm fine. You're the one with the problem. I'm trying to talk to you." She sighed like I was wasting her time. "Ethan, I'm just tired of you needing something all the time. Can't you just exist without expecting anything from me?" That line stuck in my chest. Expecting anything from me. I didn't want much, just connection, affection, something human. But apparently even that was too heavy to carry. Days turned into weeks. The silence became its own kind of language, one I couldn't translate anymore. And then came the night everything snapped. I had spent the day fixing a client's roof in the pouring rain. When I got home, soaked and shivering, Claire was in the living room watching a show. I sat on the edge of the couch, rubbing my hands together for warmth. "Can you hand me that blanket?" I asked quietly. She didn't move. "Claire." Her eyes didn't leave the screen. "Get it yourself." Something inside me hardened. It wasn't anger yet, just exhaustion turned solid. I got up, grabbed the blanket, and went to our bedroom. A few minutes later, she followed, muttering under her breath about how dramatic I was being. As I started undressing for bed, she said, "You don't have to sleep here, you know? If you're uncomfortable." That was it. The tone, the arrogance, the way she said it like she was doing me a favor. I turned to her. "What's your deal, Claire? You treat me like a burden in my own home." She stood there, arms crossed. "You're making everything about you. I told you not to touch me, not to expect things." "That's not a request." Her words landed sharper this time. Not a request. A rule. Like she owned me, or worse, like she didn't care if she did. I looked at her for a long moment before speaking. My voice came out steadier than I felt. "Be a real wife," I said. "That's not a request either." The silence that followed was heavy, like the whole room stopped breathing. For the first time, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Not guilt, but shock. Like she didn't expect me to finally draw a line. She didn't say a word. She just turned around and walked out. I didn't stop her. I didn't follow. I sat there on the edge of the bed, the quiet pressing against my chest. That night, she slept in the guest room. I slept in the dark, feeling something colder than loneliness. Clarity. The next morning, I woke up alone. Her side of the bed was untouched, perfectly smooth, like she'd made sure to leave no trace of herself there. The guest room door was closed, but I could hear faint music playing inside. Something cheerful, something that didn't fit the atmosphere of our house anymore. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee, staring at the steam rising from the cup, wondering how long two people could live together without actually living together. She came downstairs an hour later, dressed like she was heading out. "Going somewhere?" I asked. "Brunch with friends," she said, without looking at me. "Do they know you moved into the guest room?" Her eyes narrowed. "You're being petty." "No," I said quietly. "I'm being honest." She grabbed her purse and keys. Before she walked out, she added, "You're acting like I owe you something." I didn't respond, because she did. And somewhere deep down, she knew it. That day I stayed home cleaning. Not because I cared about the mess, but because I needed order somewhere. I found her old love letters in a drawer, folded neatly under a pile of receipts. I read one. It was from our second year of marriage. "I love how you never give up on us." The irony stung. By the time she came home that evening, I'd packed a small duffel bag. Not to leave, but because I needed her to see it. "What's that?" she asked. "Clothes," I said. "I might go stay with my brother for a bit." Her face barely moved. "Do what you want." There it was again, indifference masquerading as strength. I looked at her for a long moment before speaking. "You know, Claire, marriage isn't about control. It's about choice. Every day we choose each other. Lately, you've chosen everything but me." She rolled her eyes. "You're so dramatic. This is why I can't talk to you." "No," I said. "This is why you don't want to." She froze, just for a second. I could see it, the flicker of guilt, the flash of recognition. Then she shrugged it off and walked away. That night, I didn't sleep. I thought about the man I used to be, hopeful, patient, maybe even naive. I thought about the woman I married, the promises we made, and how somewhere along the way, love turned into tolerance, and tolerance turned into distance. Around 3 a.m., I went downstairs, grabbed my jacket, and left. No note, no goodbye. Just the sound of the door clicking shut behind me. I drove for hours. The city lights blurred into streaks of yellow and white. I ended up by the lake, the same place I took her on our first date. Back then, she couldn't stop talking. Now I couldn't remember the sound of her laughter. Sitting there, I realized something. She hadn't taken love away from me. I'd been giving it to someone who stopped wanting it. And that wasn't my failure. It was my lesson. 2 days later, she called. "Ethan, when are you coming home?" Her voice was flat, like she was asking about the weather. "I don't know," I said. "Is there still a home to come back to?" She hesitated. "You're overreacting." "No," I said softly. "I just finally reacted." Silence. Then the faintest tremor in her voice. "So, that's it." I almost said yes, but I paused. "It doesn't have to be. But if this keeps being one-sided, it will be." She didn't reply, just hung up. That was the last time she called for a while. A week later, I went back, not to reconcile, but to collect what was left of me in that house. She was there, sitting at the kitchen table, phone in hand, eyes red. She looked up when I walked in. "You really left," she said quietly. "I told you I would." There was a long pause. Then she whispered, "I didn't think you meant it." I nodded. "That's been the problem all along." She wiped a tear, but I didn't move closer. I'd spent months trying to touch someone who built walls out of silence. Now, I understood that love doesn't survive where respect has died. I picked up my bag, looked at her one last time and said, "You said, 'Don't touch me.' I listened. But now, 'Don't reach for me,' because that's not a request either." And I walked out. The funny thing about endings is how quiet they are. No shouting, no slammed doors. Just the sound of peace filling the space where pain used to live. I didn't hate her. I didn't love her anymore either. I just understood her. Sometimes, love doesn't end in betrayal or lies. Sometimes it dies from neglect, from the slow erosion of kindness, from taking something sacred and treating it like routine. And when that happens, leaving isn't revenge. It's self-respect.